Wednesdays are always a super jam packed day of recording for me. And I got to tell you that by the time that I get to the Danielle Moody show at 5 p.m., I am exhausted. But there is so much goddamn news that I could probably do 5 and 6 shows a day and still wouldn't be able to cover everything that is happening. Y'all, there is so much to unpack today from imminent war to a Epstein continued fallout to the Dum Dum twins of Donald Trump saying the quiet part out loud. Let's unpack it together. Grab your cocktails, your mocktails, your support pets and plants, because you're going to need them. Welcome to the Danielle Moody Show, dear friends. Buckle up because it's a doozy and it's only Wednesday. Welcome, damnation, to the Danielle Moody Show, and happy Wednesday. Happy Ramadan to those who celebrate. I do say happy Lent. Today is the beginning of Lent. As well as yesterday was the beginning of the Lunar New Year, welcoming in the fire horse. And there's just so much astrology and so much things, so many cosmic things going on. As I said earlier today with my friend Jared Yates Sexton on the check-in, my energy is like up here, like all the hairs on my body are just standing on edge. It is a wild cosmic and spiritual week. And it all aligns with what we have seen at other points in time and other points in our history when revolutions occur. Apparently, the last time that happened, we had the Berlin Wall fall, and at other times we had the Haitian Revolution, the American Revolution. I mean, this environment, this energy is ripe for a revolution. It's just a matter of what it is that we will decide to do as a people. But my God, this regime has not taken their foot off of our necks or off of the gas pedal of cruelty and insanity. And so, where do we begin today? Well, the fact that we may be headed towards World War III. Yes. And I wish, dear friends, that I was kidding. I am actually not. This is according to Newsweek, Axios, and so many others that are offering up the fact that Donald Trump is escalating his military position in Iran. And Newsweek offers the 6 signs Trump's Iran war is imminent. The standoff between the United States and Iran is fragile when several factors pointing to a heightened likelihood of war. The conflict is likely to be a weeks long operation that would resemble all out war. Hmm. Rather than last summer's targeted strikes, sources told Axios this week. This leak, combined with an accelerated U.S. military buildup in the region, Iran's refusal to budge on Trump's red lines during Tuesday's talks, satellite images showing Iran fortifying key facilities, rising internal pressure. Yeah, folks, it doesn't look fucking good. And so here are the 6 points that Newsweek lays out. Number 1, Trump sends show of force to the Middle East. And as Jared said earlier today on the check-in, uh, we haven't seen this kind of military buildup since Desert Storm. And that didn't last a handful of weeks. Okay. Just to be clear. Number 2, massive weeks-long campaign planned. Number 3, talks hit red lines. The two sides remain far apart in talks. Indirect negotiations in Geneva, mediated by Oman, have shown limited progress. According to reports today, not limited progress, they fell the fuck apart. JD Vance said the discussions this week went well in some ways, I guess, because everyone can actually speak. But did it go anywhere? No, it did not. but made clear that Trump has set red lines that the Iranians are not willing to actually acknowledge and work through. The biggest sticking points are uranium enrichment and Iran's missile program. Tehran insists it has the right to enrich uranium on its own soil and has resisted calls to give up stockpiles enriched to 60% purity, just below weapons grade. Reasons number 4 and 5, well, Iran fortifies key facilities. And number 5, Iran unrest rattles leadership. Number 6, Strait of Hormuz closed for the first time since the 1980s. That doesn't seem good, right? Okay. Moment of high risk. These 6 factors indicate a moment of high risk. U.S. forces are moving into position while diplomacy is stuck on core issues. Prediction markets are also signaling elevated expectations of military action this year. On the Polymarket platform, the probability of a U.S. or Israeli strike by June 30th is currently around 71%. Kalshi prediction markets are not optimistic a deal will be reached. The chances of a U.S. Iran nuclear deal before August are listed as just 30% and falling. War is not certain. Talks are still underway, and both sides say they prefer a deal. But the warning signs of all out conflict are stronger than they have been for years. So let's just take a beat, shall we? And think about what's happening. We have midterm elections in what? 8 months? 9 months? And if you recall, when Donald Trump last year was sitting down in the gaudy ass Oval Office with President Zelensky, and he was talking with him, obviously, about the United States support of Ukraine. But in that conversation, Zelensky had spoken about the fact that Ukraine hasn't had elections in a few years. And why hasn't Ukraine had elections in a few years? Oh, I don't know, because they're at war and Russia continues to bomb the hell out of them. So, in that meeting, which I talked about on this show, Donald Trump said, whoa, whoa, whoa. You haven't had elections in a couple of years because you've been at war? Huh. Maybe we should try that. Which then prompted those in the Oval Office to laugh. Not quite sure where the joke was from a man who actually incited an insurrection and told his own people to hang his own vice president. Well, he didn't say to hang his own vice president. He told them to go take their country back, and that Mike Pence was the one that was responsible for casting a vote that could, right, keep him in power. And so they took it upon themselves to then build a gallows on the steps of the Capitol building and call for the hanging of Mike Pence, who would stay barricaded in the bowels of the Capitol building because he was afraid to get in his own car because he wasn't sure who the drivers and the security were working for and if he would actually end up at a secure location or maybe a headline. So here's the thing. Does anyone find it curious that all the timing that is happening? So first, Donald Trump invades Venezuela and kidnaps the president and the first lady of that country, which, by the way, we just stopped talking about. You know, they're here as like hostages of the United States because apparently we're in that business now. So one, he does that. Two, does everybody forget that over the holiday season that he was bombing Nigeria? Okay. Then now he is once again escalating tensions with Iran because mind you that when Donald Trump entered office the first time back in 2017, do you know who had spent 2 years negotiating a deal with Iran? Barack Obama. Do you know who had successfully, after 2 years of negotiations, got a deal with Iran? Barack Obama. Do you know who then tore up that deal? Donald Trump. Why did Donald Trump rip up that deal, not because it wasn't good, but because a black man did it and he didn't want Barack Obama to have any wins. So now, after that deal was ripped up, he's been now trying to strike a new deal by striking their facilities. Donald Trump is bloodthirsty. Okay. He wants war for a number of reasons. One of which is because he doesn't want to hold elections in these United States, because as the polls continue to show, is that he's going to lose. The Republican Party is going to lose. So, do you think that the man that incited an insurrection and then pardoned the 1,500, 1,600 insurrectionists and then gave them jobs as ICE agents, do you think that that man is going to allow for there to be a free and fair election in November? Or do you think that Donald Trump is going to, one, raise temperatures here at home and show that we need to invoke the Insurrection Act? That's behind door number one. Door number two is I'm going to escalate tensions around the world and then destabilize the world in such a way that we enter into the potentiality of World War III. That's behind door number two. And then door number three would be all of the above. So those are my thoughts as I hear that we are about to go to war with Iran. And do we think that the rest of the world is going to sit back? I mean, maybe they will, but eventually those things have a way of spilling over and pulling everybody into the fucking vortex of crazy. And that's where we're headed. Isn't that wonderful? Being as how, Donald Trump wants a civil war at home. He wants a world war abroad. And either way, he's going to profit, right? Either way, because he's invested in the military technology apparatus, he's invested in the private prisons. Like, war is money for them, folks. If there's anything that you learned from some of the findings in the Epstein files, is that these people, this Epstein syndicate, this Epstein cohort, they profit off of cruelty. They profit off of death. They profit off of war. They profit off of pandemic. So this just spells more money for them. Fuck humanity. Fuck, right? The potential of like massive loss of life and the unleashing of everybody's fucking weapons of mass destruction. Who cares? So long as they make money. Speaking of those in the Epstein class, also today, billionaire Lex Wexner of the Victoria's Secret fame tells lawmakers that he was conned by Jeffrey Epstein and did nothing wrong, even though his name showed up in the files and labeled him as a co-conspirator. Because now the 88-year-old wants to play like he's a feeble-minded man that was just conned by somebody smarter than him. Okay. Does that look like a man that was being conned to you? Or does it look like a man that was having the time of his life until, oops, everyone found out that you are either a pedophile or support pedophiles? The 88-year-old, this is according to NBC News, who has been under fire over his many appearances in the Justice Department's records on Epstein, denied allegations he was Epstein's co-conspirator. In his prepared statement, he told lawmakers that, quote, never witnessed nor had any knowledge of Epstein's criminal activity. Wexner's testimony was delivered behind closed doors from his home in New Albany, Ohio, in response to a subpoena from the committee as part of its Epstein probe. I have done nothing wrong and I have nothing to hide, he said in his prepared statement. I completely and irrevocably cut ties with Epstein nearly 20 years ago when I learned that he was an abuser, a crook, and a liar. And let me be crystal clear. I never witnessed nor had any knowledge of Epstein's criminal activity. Well, Representative Robert Garcia of California told reporters during a break in the deposition that Wexner was trying to, quote, downplay how close his relationship was with Epstein. Quote, there would be no Epstein Island. There'd be no Epstein plane. There would be no Epstein money to traffic women and girls. Mr. Epstein would not be the wealthy man he was without the support of Lex Wexner. Another committee member, Representative Stephen Lynch from Massachusetts, said, quote, there's no question in my mind, given the evidence so far, that Les Wexner knew about this and failed to stop it. First off, let's just stop pretending that these men didn't know. Like, I just really wish that we could all just collectively be like, y'all were at the island. Y'all were at Zorro Ranch. Y'all were hanging out in the Manhattan townhouse. Y'all were going on trips. Y'all were at functions together. You absolutely fucking knew what this man was doing. Why? Because he's showing up with girls young enough to be your fucking granddaughter, right? He's showing up with children at these events, girls that clearly look like prepubescent. And you're telling me, oh, what did he say? That these were his interns that were 12? Give me a fucking break. I'm just so tired of like the gaslighting and the having us believe that, oh, now they want to push all of this on the quote unquote dead guy, that he was the kingpin of it all. Meanwhile, he was the one that was helping them enable all of their businesses and get as wealthy as they were, and then throwing in the perks of rape and torture. Wexner had a lengthy relationship with Epstein, who managed Wexner's personal finances for over a decade in the 1990s and early 2000s. Friends, can we all remember when Epstein was convicted the first time? That would be in the what? Early 2000s. The man was managing your personal finances. You, sir, are a multi-billionaire, and you're telling me that you didn't do any due diligence into the motherfucker that was managing your money? How stupid do you think we all are? The FBI referred to Wexner as a possible co-conspirator in an August 2019 internal document compiled days after Epstein's death and recently released by the Justice Department. In his statement, Wexner maintained he was a victim as well, who'd been ripped off by a person he trusted and who lived a double life. He was clever, diabolical, and a master manipulator. Sounds like you may be describing yourself. Ugh. So moments after this deposition or this meeting was held between the House Oversight Committee members and Les Wexner, Jasmine Crockett took to social media to discuss what it was that she heard.
Is young girls seemingly looking for an opportunity to model, and there were always rich and powerful people on the other side, dangling a carrot, saying, I will give you the life that you're seeking. Yet ultimately, the stories are the same. They're stories of abuse. They're stories of trafficking at the highest level. And I will tell you one thing that was remembered for sure was when asked about Donald Trump and Epstein and whether or not they had been in the same room and what that looked like. He didn't quite remember, but he imagined that, yes, that possibly happened, because he did remember that Donald Trump also would like to show up to the Victoria's Secret runway shows. Now, that was a little odd to him, he said, because Donald Trump was not engaged in fashion whatsoever.
He wasn't engaged in fashion, but allegedly he was engaged in trafficking. Here's the thing to me, and I really appreciate what Representative Crockett said there. which is that the thing about these creepy, disgusting, diabolical, devil-like men is that they preyed, right? They preyed on these children with, the potential for fame, to be models, to have this jet set lifestyle. They preyed on them. As she said, they dangled the carrot in front of them. Oh, maybe you can become a Victoria's Secret model, and maybe you can, become a Miss Teen USA pageant contestant. And then they used them, they abused them, and allegedly tortured them and killed some of them. So do you really want us to sit here and believe that Les Wexner, who had Epstein manage his billions and helped him get richer and richer, didn't know what was going on? Do you really want us to believe that these men got into the business of parading young girls around in their underwear out of the goodness of their heart because they just want to see a little girl's dreams come true? Give me a break. But I want to say this. Today, there was a viral video going around of a Chinese broadcaster who just gives you an idea of how the world is looking at America right now. While there are other nations that are opening up investigations and heads are rolling, resignations are coming in, criminal investigations are being opened, while the United States does absolutely nothing to those that are named, doesn't even pretend that they are going to get to the bottom of anything because they don't even give a shit enough about us and how we think about them to pretend to even give us a story of, oh yeah, we're in it. We're in the thick of an investigation. None of these villains, will get away with these crimes. No, they're not doing that. One, because they know that they don't have to run an election, right? They don't have to campaign on anything because they don't ever plan on leaving. So they don't really give a shit about what it is that we think. But I'm really interested in how the rest of the world sees us. And I want you to take a listen. This reporter's name is Wang. And he is from First Voice. I think it's First Voice China, First Voice Asia. And take a listen to his breakdown.
The Epstein files are out, millions of pages, thousands of videos, an order from Congress. And what have we learned? Well, Democrats accused the Attorney General of a cover-up. The Attorney General calls a senior congressman a washed-up loser lawyer. Victims sit in the room watching their accusers' names blacked out while their own names, their photographs, their suffering are leaked to the public. Welcome to accountability, Western style. For years, the Western elites, the Western men, have stood on what they call the moral high ground. They lecture other countries on human rights, on fair courts, on the worth of every person. They send diplomats to lecture former colonies about the rule of law as if that law were a custom-made suit only for a rich man. Now, let me be clear. This is not about one man. It is about what Julie K. Brown, the reporter who broke the story in the first place, said with painful honesty. Nearly every element of society allowed him to get away with them. Not one element, every element. Let's walk through the Museum of Western Hypocrisy. In 2007, federal prosecutors had 82 pages of documents to charge him. Victims as young as 14 years old. They had the evidence. What happened next was not a failure. It was a choice, a secret deal, negotiated in private, kept from the victim for nearly a year. When the government finally wrote to these victims, it told them the case was still under investigation. A federal judge caught this, and I quote, actively misleading them. Now, Alex Acosta, the prosecutor who signed the deal, sat for an interview with the Justice Department's internal investigators. His defense? He couldn't remember. Didn't recall the financial records, didn't recall the flight logs. Now, years later, his testimony to Congress was so full of, I don't remember, that word memory became his legal excuse. This is the system that lectures the world on fair and independent courts. But the courts were only the first domino. Let us talk about the gentleman, the European gentleman. I'm not just talking about the businesses and the finance circles who made up the bulk of the Epstein guest list, but in academia as well. Scholars who fill university offices. According to documents released this month and reported by Nature, Epstein kept a list of nearly 30 well-known scientists. He invested millions at Harvard. He gave $6.5 million to start a research program. He kept an office there. A virus expert at Stanford asked Epstein to pay for a study on college students' sexual behavior to test, and I quote, our horny virus idea. A physics professor facing investigation into his own misconduct received an email from Epstein telling him to say no comment to the press. This is not just selling influence. This is intellectuals bound down. Men who trade in fame and respect traded it for a check from a convicted sex offender. And the banks? Deutsche Bank moved millions of dollars for Epstein. They flagged him as high risk. They kept him anyway. Wire transfers, cash withdrawals, payments to people accused of helping him. New York's financial regulator called it inexcusable. The bank paid $150 million to settle the case. And let me translate that. $150 million is not punishment. It is simply the price they pay to make the problem go away. And now we arrive at the truly interesting part. The Epstein files have become a political punching bag. The Trump camp makes it about the Clintons. The Democrats make it about the Republicans. The Attorney General accuses the Committee of drama, and the committee accuses the Attorney General of running a cover-up. Meanwhile, the law Congress passes clearly states that names cannot be blacked out just to avoid embarrassment, harm to reputation, or political discomfort. So, how did the Department of Justice manage to black out the powerful and expose the victims? So here's the uncomfortable truth the West does not want to face. The Epstein archive is not just one file on one criminal. It is a CT scan of the whole system. The courts, the banks, the politicians, even some academic institutions.
It is not just an indictment of one man. It is a CT scan of the entire system. The banks, academia, the courts. Every single level of power that the West has is involved in the Epstein syndicate. And what I think was gorgeous about Wang presentation there is that he exposed the hypocrisy that has been the United States, having the audacity, as he would say, to put out report cards on human rights violations and civil rights in other nations. Meanwhile, you're doing dirt at home. Who the fuck are you to judge? And what Donald Trump and what this syndicate has done in the world is once again remove America from being the center, from being the moral arbiter. Because it is clear to us that pedophilia is fine with you guys. Torture, A-okay. Fucking scamming and money laundering and trafficking. All of the things that you have the audacity to accuse China and other nations of doing, you've been doing. And not only that, when it's brought to light, you're not going to do dick about it. So when he said, this is a CT scan of the system is rotten to its goddamn core. And like I have said, what the Department of Justice and what Donald Trump wants you to believe is that this was all about just one man, and that man is dead, and his accomplice is in prison. So justice has been served. There is much to do about nothing here. And what every other outlet outside of the United States shows is that Epstein was one of the points in this web. He was not the only point. And again, if you think that this multi-billion-dollar syndicate died with Epstein in 2019, you are fucking kidding yourself. These people rebooted, reimagined how not to get caught, and they are still running this shit. And when Pam Bondi said the quiet part out loud that, oh my God, if we were to investigate everyone, the entire system would collapse. I say, burn, baby, burn. If you're telling me that to do your job as the attorney general would mean that all systems would crumble and fall down, then those systems shouldn't stand. Because they are literally standing on the backs and the bodies of their victims. Folks, if we do not force the excavation of America in this moment of time, we will never rid ourselves of this sickness, and we will never, never be able to call ourselves anybody's democracy. We will never be able to show our face in global society. We'll never be taken seriously. As a matter of fucking fact, today, The Guardian put out an article where they were showing that America has lost all of its allies. They showed a bubble that had 46 countries that are currently aligned with each other against the United States. Then they showed a bubble that included the United States with 6 other countries, including Canada, and said that this is where our allies were. And I'm like, excuse me, Guardian, you have a typo. Because I, for one, know for sure, based on the reporting that I have done, that Canada is sure as fuck not aligned with the United States. That the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has made it clear that he wants the middle powers to band together to create a new trading bloc to obstruct Donald Trump's tariffs. That he has created a new sense of nationalism and patriotism inside of Canada by saying fuck you to the United States. So, as all other nations find different trading allies and also begin to open up their investigations into the Epstein files and figure out which one of their nationals was involved, they are looking at the United States and they are like, we don't want none of that. That place is rotten to the core and stinks to fucking high heaven. That is our new legacy. That is what Donald Trump and the Epstein syndicate has done. And, you know, folks, it is just to the point today where this happened. Millions of files related to Jeffrey Epstein suggest the existence of a global criminal enterprise that carried out acts meeting the legal threshold of crimes against humanity. A panel of independent experts appointed by the UN Human Rights Council says. The crimes, they said, showed a commodification and dehumanization of women and girls. Quote, so grave is the scale, nature, systematic character, and transnational reach of these atrocities against women and girls that a number of them may reasonably meet the legal threshold of crimes against humanity, the experts said in a statement. The experts said that the allegations contained in the files require an independent, thorough, and impartial investigation, and said inquiries should also be launched into how it was possible for such crimes to be committed for so long. The U.S. Justice Department did not immediately respond to a request for comment. How did it go on for so long? Well, because everybody was in on it. Everybody was in on it. From lawyers to doctors to dentists to tech CEOs to judges. Everybody was in on it. and everybody's still in on it. But every day, another thread is pulled. And again, we may not see justice inside of this country, but the rest of the world is waking the fuck up. And inshallah, oh, they keep digging. They keep digging and digging and digging until they find where all the bodies are buried. Allegedly. So, on top of which, let's talk about the ways in which Donald Trump is just an idiot, right? So, on Monday, he decided to activate the FCC to pull a segment from the Stephen Colbert Show on CBS. A segment that I hope everybody watched. Well, as of this time, millions upon millions of people have actually watched the segment with Representative James Tallarico. And it backfired spectacularly. Because had Donald Trump done nothing, Stephen Colbert's normal shows get about 2.5 million views. This one particular clip, though, went absolutely viral. And yes, it is, in fact, the Streisand effect. And there's no one better to lay it out for us than Harry Enton over at CNN.
You know, I'm going to quote one of my favorite singers and actresses, Barbra Streisand. There's a real Barbra Streisand effect going on here. What are we talking about here? Well, take a look here. Google searches for James Tallarico. In the U.S., up 4,900% today versus Monday. How about in Texas, where you have that key Senate race going on there? Up like a rocket. We're talking about up 1,150%. So this has actually been very good news for James Tallarico. You want that attention. You have that primary going on in a few weeks, and he's absolutely gotten it both nationwide and, of course, very importantly, in the state of Texas as well, the highest on record.
He has never had more Google searches in Texas or the United States than
Correct.
he did yesterday. All right, that is something. So talk to me a little bit more about this race. He is running in a contested primary in Texas against Jasmine Crockett. How's the money raising going?
Okay, you know, one of the things I think is so important, there are a lot of Democrats nationwide who want Tallarico to win. And obviously this extra attention will certainly help. And one of the ways we know that James Tallarico has generated a lot of interest nationwide is, look at this, the money raised, the Democratic candidates, $13 million for James Tallarico. Jasmine Crockett, of course, the other candidate running, the other big candidate running, just $7 million. He's doubling up on Crockett in terms of the money race. He's been able to get his name recognition to go way up in Texas. Of course, Crockett, before this race, was a nationally known name for taking on President Donald John Trump. So Tallarico really raising a lot of money. He has more cash on hand at this point, and all that extra attention going in the final few weeks. He's just going to have even more money. The fundamentals, the money fundamentals, really favoring Tallarico at this point.
What are the prediction markets saying about this race right now?
Yeah, okay. So what about the prediction market? What do we see? Chance to be the Texas Democratic Senate nominee. Look at this. On Sunday, Tallarico was the favorite, but it was pretty close, a 61% chance. But look at that. It turns out this attention was very good for Tallarico. The prediction market, Kalshi prediction market, having his chance go all the way up to 3 and 4 at this point, a 75% chance of winning that nomination.
So this is what Kelsey's saying. The prediction markets. What about the actual polling, which I think, albeit, was before the whole Colbert situation?
It was before the Colbert situation, but this is going to be very interesting because the polling, at least one poll, actually had Crockett ahead here, 47% to Tallarico's 39%. Now, we'll see if that polling changes in the final few weeks of this campaign, but this could be an indication that the prediction markets are a leading indicator in this race because the polling is a little stale.
One of the most closely watched races in the country, at least over the next few weeks, to be sure. Harry Enton, thank you very much.
Streisand effect. You don't want attention to be placed on something, and then you blow that attention out of the water, is what Donald Trump and Brendan Carr at the FCC did to James Tallarico's campaign. Now, look, I love Jasmine Crockett, and I would love nothing more than for her to make history as the first Black woman senator from that state. But I'm going to be honest with you. Texas is racist as fuck. And it is also misogynist as fuck. It doubled down for Donald Trump multiple times over. It is also gerrymandered to fuck. So why didn't Donald Trump want Tallarico? Because he is a progressive, white Christian currently in seminary school that will sit very well for the white Christians who can't bring themselves to vote for a black woman. He provides them with an alternative. Now, here's the thing. There have been rumors around social media that Tallarico, referred to Colin Aldred's campaign as mediocre and called him a mediocre black man. That was said on social media. Don't know if it's verified or true. Tallarico addressed that on Colbert's show and said, I did not say that. I said that his campaign was mediocre. I did not call him mediocre. 2, Jasmine Crockett has come out and said that PACs that are supporting James Tallarico have darkened her imaging, that they are pulling racist shit, and that Tallarico, has not come out and told PACs that are in his name supporting him not to pull their racist shit. Okay? So these are the things that are going on. For folks that are watching this from Texas, vote for who you feel will do the best job. I think that Jasmine Crockett would be the person to do the best job. Do I think that Jasmine Crockett is electable statewide in the state of Texas right now? I don't know. I don't know. So we will see. What is also happening? Oh, these two idiots were on CNBC, Tweedledum and Tweedledee. Trump's stupid sons were on CNBC, and get this, they happened to say the quiet part out loud. And usually, folks, I do not play their voices on here, but just listen to what they say about Donald Trump's World Liberty Forum and the shit that he's doing.
What the critics would say, they'd say that the credibility factor is the Trump name and the Trump White House, and that everyone, is here to curry favor.
I think, again, the great irony is they didn't give us much of a choice. When you had every...
They created this monster.
When you had every...
Either one of us could have called any banker in New York over the last 20 years and gotten a loan for a building, and, we just realized we were sort of the top of the Ponzi scheme that was banking.
They realized that they were at the top of the Ponzi scheme that was banking. So they created this monster, and we had no, choice but to profit off of it and create our own meme coin and, profit off of this scheming ass place. They say the quiet part out loud because who gonna check them? Not a goddamn person. But while they're making billions of dollars off of their father's name, right? I want to show you this because apparently, I don't know, maybe it is the fire horse, maybe it is all the stars being aligned, but everybody seemingly took a sip of the truth serum and they can't seem to help themselves because as Democratic Wins Media says, in a stunning moment, Fox News is openly admitting that Donald Trump's policies are destroying the American farm industry. Take a listen to this.
So we got a new report, and it shows the number of U.S. farms went down last year. Actually, give me the numbers.
Well, those stats are shocking, Stu. The number of U.S. farms shrank by 15,000 in 2025. Yes, it brings the total to 1.865 million, still a lot, but farmland is continuing to face pressure from economic factors such as urbanization and low or basically negative returns per acre. You're losing money. According to the American Farm Bureau, it is part of a long-lasting decline. We've seen it year after year, while farm bankruptcies, by the way, are on the rise. The largest decline at the state level was Texas. No surprise, it's lost 2,000 farm operations, while no state saw an increase in farms at all. Last year, Illinois, for example, lost 400, Iowa and Indiana 500, Minnesota a whopping 1,300. The numbers show that the numbers of farms decreased in every economic category except for farms that make $1 million or more in sales each year, which actually saw a minor increase of 50 farms. But any way you look at it or try to paint it, it's a pretty grim picture, Stu.
It's a pretty grim picture for the farmers who largely voted for Donald Trump. So, who voted for their own foreclosure and bankruptcy. Also interesting, what do you think is going to go in the place of all of these farms? Maybe it will be big ag, but something tells me that it will also be data centers. Data centers that need a massive amount of land and a massive amount of water, both of which farms have. So, could it be that the disruption of the farming industry was actually done on purpose? Could it be that if you could bankrupt, close down about 15,000 farms, well, then that land is going to be up for grabs, isn't it? And then who can gobble it up for cheap? Meta, Google, Palantir, Anthropic? Just saying. The things that look on the surface like a big giant mistake, I think that if you peel back the onion, if you dig a little bit under the surface, then you would see that it's actually a strategic move that nobody's really paying attention to or connecting the dots of. Just a thought. And speaking of Meta, guess who has announced that they're going to drop $65 million into the midterms push? Meta. Guess who's also dropping about $100 million into the midterms push? Palantir. Guess who's also dropping money into the midterm elections? Microsoft. And what do they all have in common? AI and the fact that they want massive deregulation. Folks, it is, we're wild. We're in wild, wild times, but I'm here to connect the dots. And speaking of dots to be connected, while all of this is happening, something really interesting went viral. And I don't know if folks saw it, so I have to bring it here. But in the midst of the Lunar Year celebration, China showcased their new robots. Now, I had to do some digging to make sure that this was actually real, because I was terrified. But then I remembered like the Beijing opening Olympics, which also scared the shit out of me. But here is the thing. China's most watched TV show, the annual CCTV Spring Festival Gala on Monday, showcased the country's cutting-edge industrial policy and Beijing's push to dominate humanoid robots and the future of manufacturing. 4 rising humanoid robot startups, Unitree Robotics, Galbot, Noatex, and Magic Lab, demonstrated their products at the gala, a televised event and touchstone for China comparable to the Super Bowl. And what did they showcase? Well, I'm going to show you 2 clips. And for folks that will be watching this in the replay, there are certain things that may be pulled from my show today for copyright. So it's one of the benefits of watching live. But I'm going to show you 2 clips that, I don't know, they had me shook. And I think that they might have you shook too. On top is what the robots were doing in 2026, just a couple of days ago. On the bottom is what they look like in 2025, just a year ago. So this is the comparison, okay? Now I just want you to see the 2026 robots in comparison to the actual human dancers. Anyone think that that was terrifying? Anyone think that China is just training robots to dance at shows and not, do battle? Like go to war? Perhaps? While America is being dragged back into the 18th century, China is operating in the future. And the future looks terrifying. But that's not the only thing, because far be it for me to stop there. Last week, I broke down the article written by this gentleman, Matt Schumer, entitled "Something Big is Happening." That article has now been read and seen over 80 million times. And it is about his breakdown and assessment of where AI is headed. And it caught the attention of CBS Mornings. And they open up this segment with showing another piece of technology out of China, which was another video that went ultra viral, which was their new AI.
AI-generated clip that is going around the internet right now that you may have seen. It's a fake fight between Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise that looks like it could be from any big-time action movie. It's pretty good, right? Yeah. So this video is raising alarms in Hollywood, but you don't need to be in the film industry to know what it means for all of us. According to our next guest, AI could be coming for your jobs next. All right, so Matt Schumer's article, "Something Big is Happening," has been viewed more than 80 million times. In it, he writes that AI's, quote, capability for massive disruption could be here by the end of this year. We're past the point where this is an interesting dinner conversation about the future. The future is already here. It just hasn't knocked on your door yet. Schumer, a co-founder and former CEO of an AI company, is a venture capitalist, and he joins us right now. Good morning. How you doing?
Thank you for having me.
Of course. All right. So you say that you wrote this article originally for your parents, and you didn't expect this to go viral. So what was your intentions in your response when it all happened?
And what do your parents do that you wanted to write an article for them?
Yeah, so my dad is a lawyer, and my mom worked in travel sales. And my mom's actually been an early adopter of this. My dad has been he's been pushing back for a while, and I've been trying to explain to him what this all is going to mean. And thankfully, he's towards the end of a career. He's close to retirement, but it's still worth knowing about. But I'm their son. They're not going to listen to me. So I figured, why not write something and see if I can make it sound a little bit more real and professional for them. because there wasn't much content out there communicating this to people who aren't in tech. There's so much content, and everybody in tech knows about it, talks about it, but nobody tries to communicate it in a way that people outside of tech can understand without knowing all the jargon that the industry is filled with. So I wrote something for my dad, and I sent it to a few friends, and they were like, I sent this to my family. And that was my first sign that maybe there was something here, but still, I thought it was not going to go viral. I posted it, and it just, it got, at this point, probably close to 100 million views across platforms.
Yeah, and your message is what, Matt? Because it's fascinating, but it's also terrifying. Your bottom line message is what?
First of all, don't panic, and I want to emphasize that. Knowledge is power, and now that you know about this, you can act on it. I'm not saying this is definitely going to happen. I think it will, and I think many other people in the industry think it's very, very likely.
What is the it? Yeah, I still want people to understand exactly what you're saying here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is that by the end of this year or the end of next year, it is extremely likely that AI will be able to do any task that a human can do on a computer at least as well or possibly better than a human. Now, that doesn't mean, and this is the reason not to panic, that doesn't mean it's going to take your job overnight. It just means that it's going to be possible for the AI to do this. In terms of your job, it really is situational. It depends on what you do, the industry you're in, the regulations you're facing. The question is, how soon will it actually diffuse through your industry? So that's a question each person needs to ask and answer on their own.
So, Matt, we live in a capitalist society. You've argued that AI innovation moves too fast for traditional regulation, but capitalism, as you know, rewards whoever moves the fastest. So how do we avoid a system where the economic incentives to scale artificial intelligence overwhelm society's ability to set guardrails for it?
Well, I'm actually glad, and this is one of the things that I think came out of this article that I really liked. I had a senator actually reach out to me, and he sent me a selfie with a printed out version of my article, and he said I passed it around to all the other senators. And that was super exciting to me because I think most people don't understand just how fast this is moving. You can't regulate it for where it is today. You have to think about where will this technology be in 2 years. And the only way to understand where it will be in 2 years is to look 2 years back and say, wow, where did this come from? So I think this is good because this is sparking a conversation for the first time for real in real world circles, not just in tech. These people that are in the positions of power that can do this need to be thinking about where will this be if this exponential curve of how fast this is moving keeps going. You cannot regulate it based on where it is today. You have to think about where this will be.
And so here's the thing. Here's the thing that I want folks to understand, and I encourage people to go and read Matt Schumer's article, Something Big is Happening. And then I also encourage you to read the rebuttals, which are many, to his piece. Because what he says is that you have to take a look at your industry and whether or not you think that these changes are going to result in you losing your job overnight. And he says, it's more complicated than that. I beg to differ. We have watched over the last year, right, 2025, how many major layoffs have happened into the tens of thousands. And that is just the beginning. And these are not layoffs of factory workers. These are layoffs of middle management. These are quote unquote white collar jobs. Now, there are some people that continue to say, well, AI is super janky and AI can't possibly do what a human does, right? Which was what his dad said, who is a lawyer. Like, I have decades and decades of experience. The AI that I use can't possibly. And what he is saying is that for those who are using the free versions of AI, that's still operating in 2 years ago. The paid versions of AI, though, are the ones that are showing judgment capability, that are showing discernment, that are not just doing tasks, right? They are actually, right, creating and designing based on what you're offering them. So do you think that you need entry-level positions? Do you think that you need, for instance, paralegals that do all of the research over the course of days or weeks for big cases? Why would I need a paralegal if I can feed AI in that I'm a law firm that's paying maybe $200 a month? That's really no sweat off my back to replace the paralegals and the entry level lawyers that I would be paying what? 50, 60, 70, 80, $100,000 a year plus healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. So when he says that this stuff is not happening overnight, it's been happening, but we are at this exponential curve right now where AI is in fact teaching itself, which was unheard of a year ago or 2 years ago. Just like I just showed you the humanoid robots that China put out in 2025 were kind of janky and moving like robots. A year later, they're moving like actual humans with fluidity. Where the fuck do we think that that is going to be in 2027? So, folks, when he talks about this idea that you can't regulate for where AI is now, you have to regulate for where it is going. You also, if you actually care about humanity, which I'm telling you that the Epstein syndicate and class that is in control of these platforms and is in control of these labs have shown that they do not actually care about humanity. Because you would start to safeguard for what it is going to look like when millions of people are going to lose their jobs. And it's not a if, it is when. I think that by the end of this year, we are going to see job losses exceed the millions across industries. And I think that that number is going to continue to climb year after year after year. So what is the solve when humans are no longer needed for labor which is required for capitalism? Well, they've already come up with the solve, and it ain't universal basic income. It's massive detention. It's massive concentration camps. It's doing away with humanity. Humanity to them has just become too costly. They're not looking for AI to solve cancer. They're not looking for AI to aid in humanity. They're looking for a way to dissolve humanity so that they can amass more and more and more and more. We are the bugs that they want to squash. And it isn't enough to just pretend that this isn't happening. It is happening, and it's happening rapidly. And we know who is at the center of this, and we know where their ideology stands. Why? Because it's in millions of fucking documents that have come out. The most wonderful thing, if we're clear about it, that has come out from the Epstein tranche of files is understanding the deep thinking and the inhumanity and depravity of this syndicate that controls every aspect of our lives. You don't have to wonder where this is headed because they've told you in no uncertain terms where it's going. And this is not 5 years into the future. This isn't even 2 years into the future. The future is already here. That is it for me today, dear friends, on this edition of the Danielle Moody Show. Before I get out of here, I want to give deep thanks to the super stickers and super thanks, folks. This is independent media. I am people powered, but I keep all of my content free because I believe critical thinking dies behind a paywall. So every single dollar goes towards helping me do the work that you all deserve with truth and authenticity. So thank you to Demak Shea for becoming a YouTube member. Appreciate you. Eternal Energy, who drops beats in the chat on a regular basis. Thank you for the $4.99. And the Maxwell, thank you for another $4.99. And Heaven Scott, appreciate you. Lord Warrior, thank you for the $4.99. Appreciate you. Eternal Energy, you just went on one today. $4.99. Thank you so much. Here's a double shot of Jill. Oh yes, I am loving the new album. It is so good. My friends call me Ghost. Oh, Ghostface Killer, you changed your name. Thank you so much for the $5 as usual. Shirley, thank you so much for the $19.99. Tropical, thank you so much for the $2. Paperboy, thank you for becoming a member of the YouTube channel. And FRP Knox, thank you for the $19.99. Folks, I appreciate each and every single one of you. I will be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern. Do make sure to check out Democracy-ish, which is up now. We had a special guest, Jennifer Welch from the I've Had It podcast, joined us for the first half of Democracy-ish. It was an incredible conversation. It was my first time meeting Jennifer, and I got to tell you, I enjoyed it. So do check out that episode. It is up now. As always, dear friends, power to the people, and to all the people power. Get woke, stay sane. And in these extraordinarily dangerous times, dear friends, do stay safe. I will see you back here tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern. Take care of yourselves and each other. Be well.